How's it going, everyone? So today we're going to do a tutorial on how to install Windows 10. This is also including building a flash drive that's bootable. So if you didn't buy your Windows 10 retail with a disk and all of that, you're going to need a USB drive or you're going to need a disk. And I think burning an ISO is pretty simple, but there is a utility that Microsoft provides for doing Windows 10 installation. If you jump to Microsoft's website, you can look for install Windows 10 or search for that. But as you can see up here, it's Microsoft en-us/software-download/Windows 10. When you do that, there's going to be a little tool that you download. It's this little media creation tool. And if we run that, it should pop up a little utility for us to run a flash drive. What you're going to need is at least one flash drive with at least 4 gigabytes of space. And as you see here, I've already got that installed. So we're going to go through basically the standard EULA agreement and all of that. If you want to read it, go ahead. I don't, because I just want to get this done. So when you get to this page, you can obviously upgrade Windows 10 straight, or upgrade to Windows 10 straight from here. But if you're like me and you like to do brand new installations of a new operating system, you're going to say create an installation media for another PC. Click next. What this will do is it'll actually pull your computer information off of the current computer you have and populate that there. You can also uncheck this box and modify it if you need to, if say you're doing 32-bit or you need to do something else. Otherwise, it'll just use the settings you already have. So then you can click next. And here's where you can either burn an ISO, so you can have your DVD and throw it in your burner and burn it that way, or you can say, I want a USB flash drive, and you can see here we do say that you need at least 4 gigabytes. I'm going to hit next. We have our USB flash drive, and I'm going to say next. So then it's worth noting that this is going to format that drive. So you're going to want to make sure that there's nothing on it important. And so this is going to just take a few minutes to download. We'll cut the video here and come back when it's done. So it's almost done now, and yep, there it goes. So now we're going to do a quick verification of what it downloaded. It's going to make sure that the Windows 10 installation that it actually downloaded from Microsoft is going to be current. And this is probably going to take quite a bit of time as well, so we'll just kind of let this go. Oh, maybe not. It's a lot faster on this machine. So once it's verified, then it's actually going to create the media. Now, this will kind of depend on what your flash drive is. If it's a USB 3 drive and your flash drive's pretty quick, it'll probably take very little time at all. If you have an old USB 2.0 drive that you're using, just a standard old knock-around flash drive you have, it might take a lot longer. This is probably going to go pretty quickly, but we're going to cut the video anyway. And we'll be back once it's closer to done. So right about the 50% mark is when it actually starts writing to your flash drive. The first half of this is prep. You can actually see it writing to your flash drive, or at least I can because I have an activity light. Once you get past the halfway point, you should start seeing it writing to your USB flash drive, and it should complete relatively quickly if you have a decent drive. Otherwise, you might be here a while. I know I did this. The last time I did this, it was on a really, really old flash drive, and it took a significant portion of my day to get this written, so just be prepared for that. We're writing 4 gigabytes of data, so if you have a USB flash drive with poor write speed, you might run into trouble. It's also worth noting that 4 gigabytes also means like post-formatting, so if you buy a 4 gigabyte flash drive, you might not have a full 4 gigabytes of space to use for this. You might want to just bump it up to 8. Flash drives are insanely cheap. I think you can usually get an 8 gigabyte flash drive for like less than $8, so less than $1 a gigabyte these days. I think you can probably buy them for about $3 if you look around. Should be pretty easy. Alright, so now it's done. Flash drive should be ready. Finish. And it's going to clean up before it closes, which doesn't really take very long. If we look, we now have a setup sort of application. We have an auto run information. We also have this boot manager. So what you'll want to do next is basically install this, or plug this into your computer that you're going to install Windows 10 on, and then you're going to want to jump into the BIOS of your machine and make sure that you're set to boot from this. Otherwise, usually a lot of motherboards have a key that you can press while it's booting to give you a boot menu. I usually just go in and change the setting to boot from whatever device I'm plugged into, and then I change it back once I'm done. Just in case Windows, like during the process, sometimes when you're installing things, sometimes the setup will reboot and it'll need to run from it again. So I just do that until it's absolutely ready to start the installation. So take a look at this next bit and we'll see you later. So in this video, I'm going to be walking you through how to install Windows 10 on a new machine, or maybe reinstall it on your current machine. Either way, we're going to be installing it from scratch. First of all, this is my BIOS for my motherboard. What you want to do is you actually, when you boot your machine up, you're going to want to hammer your delete key as many times as you need, or maybe it's another key. it depends on your device, but whatever key gets you into the BIOS of your motherboard, so you can change the boot settings. If you're using a disk, then you're going to want to use a disk in your disk drive, and you shouldn't have to change your boot settings for that for the most part. But if you're using a flash drive like I am, you'll want to make that first, and you can see that I'm running a fancy BIOS. This is my flash drive. We're going to go ahead and install this. So now that I've got this set as my first boot device, I'm going to go ahead and hit F10, which should be save configuration. I'm going to say yes. And with any luck, we should boot back into Windows, or boot to our USB drive here in a second. That's an exciting splash screen. Alright, so it looks like we should be booting from the USB drive now. We see our little circly ball things. I don't know what you'd call those. The standard waiting screen in Windows 10. So we should be getting... There we go. And so to install Windows 10, first of all, it's going to ask you to set your language. In my case, I just have English. If you set this up on a flash drive or you bought a retail copy, you should have other language choices if you, in fact, set up other languages or purchased other languages when you bought the product. Of course, it'll let you set your timing format. I'm just going to use US. Same with keyboard method. So then you'll hit next. And then we're going to say install. So then we're going to jump to this. You're going to need to input your product key. I'm going to see if I can pull mine up real quick. So once we've entered that, pending we don't have any catastrophes, we should get past this onto the next screen. So the next screen will just be the standard license terms for Microsoft. You can read through it if you want. Ultimately, you still have to say yes. We'll tick the box and we'll click next. If you're upgrading from, say, Windows 7, or you have another installation of Windows on here that you'd probably like to keep, you can always use the upgrade option. For me, I'm going to go advanced because I need to deal with some of these. For me, I've got this drive 0 up here that I need to format, so I'm actually going to delete all the partitions off of it. And you want to make sure that you're doing this to the correct drive. It is worth noting. I have seen people delete partitions off of wrong drives, and then you're very sad. So you want to make sure you're actually doing this to drive 0. Leave your storage drive alone. If you're unsure and you have 2 hard drives, just leave the other one unplugged during this process. Just use the one. So now that we've just got this drive blanked out, and this is probably what you'll see if you have a brand new hard drive in your machine, if your computer is brand new and you're just running things. So once we have this unallocated drive, we're just going to come up here and click new. And actually, you know what? We don't even have to do that. You can allocate a new, or you can just hit next on drive 0, and we should install Windows. And that should automatically partition everything for us. So then this is going to be really just like Windows 7. If you're familiar with the Windows 7 splash screen, it looks almost identical. On this page, we're just going to see various things. It's going to say it's going to copy all the files. So in this case, it's pulling the files from the little flash drive I got plugged in. And then once it's done that, it's going to sort of unpack it, like depackage or like expand all of those compressed files, and then install a bunch of stuff and probably install some updates and then finish, and then it should reboot. So we're going to skip through this a little bit because this is going to be long and painful and tedious, and we'll be back as soon as we're past this point. So as you can see, we're now done and we're rebooting. Everything before this was automated, so there wasn't really much to look at. It's worth noting, if you selected your USB as your primary boot device, you're probably going to want to come back into your BIOS real quick and change that. We get our fancy little embedded Windows starty thing. And next we should see some Windows stuff, hopefully. There it goes. I guess it's worth noting that this little part can be a little bit glitchy and sad looking. And you shouldn't panic too much if you're seeing your machine do what mine's doing, where it just reboots and does a bunch of stuff and then reboots and does a bunch of stuff. It's just all about setting up, getting a list of devices. It's installing some drivers that it might be able to get easily. So you shouldn't worry too much unless this just keeps on hanging and boot looping for a long time. And then there we go. All right, now, here is the most important thing that you'll ever learn about Windows 10. Don't use the Express settings, ever. There's just too much stuff involved with what I would lump into the category of breach of privacy. So we're gonna go in here and basically turn all of these things off. Unless you really want, but you need to actually go through these settings and read them, because a lot of these things are very intrusive, and you should just read through them and make sure that you understand what you're agreeing to. And if you're not sure, you should just turn it off, and if it causes a problem, you can always enable it again later. I'll be opting for all of these settings off, because I'm kind of crazy about privacy, and there you go. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and hit next. We're going to do the same thing here. Just I'm turning all of them off. Same thing here. I'm not using smart screen. I'm not going to use page prediction. Basically, I don't want them caching any of the data that I don't want them to. And then this is kind of a setting that you might want to consider. This is sort of almost like if you're familiar with how BitTorrent works on the back end, this is basically what Windows or Microsoft is doing, is they're basically chucking Windows updates on your machine and then sending that to other PCs, either on your network or just out in the wild. The problem is that you can't really differentiate between that, so I would just turn it off, especially if you have like a limited bandwidth connection. So like if you have a data cap on your internet, you really want to turn that off because it might very well chew through your data cap. So then we're going to go ahead and hit next. And here's where you'll set up your user. So in my case, my name, you can enter whatever you want. Once you've entered your username and password, we can go ahead and hit next. And here's where you can use Cortana or disable it. I'm going to disable it as I find Cortana very annoying. And now it does some like real creepy messages here on the screen while it installs your stuff. Things like, "Hi, we're happy you're here. I'm going to do some stuff to your computer, so don't turn it off." And so we're going to hang out a while and let that load. Don't you find it a little creepy that the blue gets brighter and dimmer and brighter and dimmer? All right. So here we go. Boom. We have managed to get to this point. Now you'll notice that my machine is looking kind of sad, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One of which is that I have Killer Networks NIC in my motherboard, and therefore it didn't install a network driver automatically. So I'm going to actually need to do that, but that's basically how you install Windows 10. And you can start to customize this. I'm going to go ahead and unpin all of these things from my taskbar and hide Cortana. And set up a few little things like that, personalize my thing in the only way I know how. And then my background, which will be a solid color, and it will be black. And so it shall be known. So that's about how you install Windows 10. Pretty easy and straightforward. Shouldn't be too hard for any of you. If you're at the same point I'm at now, you're going to have to find another computer and install some drivers on a flash drive and migrate them over. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like. If you want to see more from me, subscribe. If you have any questions, comment section below for that. So I appreciate you taking time and watching this video, and I hope it was helpful to a few of you. Thanks a lot.